Hey guys, it's Teaksy here and welcome back to the channel. So when it comes to Black Ops 6, there are various different aspects and areas of the game that people didn't like, right? It feels like the list goes on, but one thing we can probably all agree on is that when it comes specifically to a Treyarch game, this is probably one of the worst, if not the worst map set that Treyarch have ever put together. So today, for a little bit of fun, I'm going to try my best to rank all 30 6v6 Black Ops 6 multiplayer maps from worst to best, just for a little bit of fun. And a quick disclaimer, all of the face-off maps have been excluded from the list. So without further ado, let's dive in, and the worst map in Black Ops 6 in my opinion was Red Card. It had to be, right? You know, I very almost didn't put it right at the bottom. I felt like this map came up a lot in rotation despite how bad it was, but I feel like part of that was just due to the fact that map voting in this game was a little bit broken. I feel like I did get quite a few reps on it because it was obviously in competitive as well. And I did almost drop my first nuke on this map. But outside of that, to be honest with you, this was just a terrible map, right? There's just so many areas that didn't get used. The layout of the map was really horrible. And yeah, for me, Red Card, the worst map in Black Ops 6. Coming in at 29, we've got Lowtown, which is yet another absolute shocker, right? That was there when the game released. These were release maps, right? You know, you'd think they'd put a bit more effort into the maps they were going to have at release. Again, horrible layout. A lot of areas of the map that felt like they didn't really get used. The map had water on it. I am not a big fan of water in Black Ops 6 multiplayer maps. It always reminds me of Nadeshot's clip when of MW2 2022 competitive on Zark, where Hydroelectric player went round in the water and flanked his team. But yeah, it's just not something that I like. Somehow I dropped the nuke on this map. To this day, I still do not know how. But yeah, I couldn't put it any higher, and it's Lowtown at 29. Coming in at 28, we've got Runway. So this got added a lot later on in the life cycle of Black Ops 6. And because of that, I haven't played it an awful lot. And I'm sure some of you probably haven't even played it at all. But the very little times that I did play it, I just didn't really like it. The map layout felt a bit weird. The pacing felt off. There was obviously the conveyor belt in the middle of the map where you could kind of get through. But other than that, it was kind of difficult to get to mid-map. And yeah, there's just not much to say about it. It just felt like there was no effort went into this map. I just really didn't like it. And yeah, didn't enjoy it. And Runway at 28. Coming in at 27, we've got Fugitive. So the first ever time I played this map, at the end of the game, I said, I never want to play this map again, right? And I feel like that is never a good sign when it comes to a COD map. It was set sort of more at night time. The visibility in certain areas of the map wasn't great. The map had automatic doors as well, a bit of a weird layout, some really weird areas. This map was a little bit better over time. I felt like it played pretty well in Demolition, which is my favorite game mode. But outside of that, really didn't play it that lot. Not a map that I'm going to miss, and it's Fugitive at 27. Coming in at 26 is Gravity. So this was added in the final season. So again, I haven't had too many reps. I did jump on and play the new maps because I was like, if I'm going to rank them, I need to at least have a few games on it. But I feel like with COD maps, when you've been playing Call of Duty for a lot of years, you can tell quite early on if a map's going to be decent. And I think Gravity was probably pretty average. Could it have been a little bit higher if I played it more and played it across more modes? Yeah, probably. But to be fair, it's nothing special, and it's Gravity at 26. Similar situation at 25, we've got Jackpot. So again, this was a map that was added quite late on in the life cycle of the game. Again, I don't have a huge amount of reps on it, but one thing I would say about this map is I found the visibility to be not that great. It just felt like in the mid part of the map, everything was just a very similar color. It felt like everything almost just merged into one. And with the fast-paced movement as well of Black Ops 6, I just found myself getting lost a lot of the time, just not being able to track people quite so well. And yeah, like I say, could it have been a bit higher with more reps and more modes? Possibly, but I don't think you're not going to improve the visibility whatever game mode you're playing. So it's Jackpot at 25. Coming in at 24, we've got Rig. So this was added alongside Gravity in the final season. I feel like this map's got a lot more potential than Gravity. Again, didn't play this map an awful lot. I feel like there's a lot of emphasis as well on fighting in the middle building, but within the middle building there's a lot of different little rooms and places where people can go. And then outside of the map is quite open. So, you know, you kind of got two variations there. And I feel like if you're using an SMG, you want to be mid-map. If you're using an AR, you want to be sort of more to the side. But then it felt like a lot of the outer part of the map didn't really get used. Like I say, there was a lot of emphasis on the mid-buildings. And yeah, it was Rig at 24. Coming in at 23, and I might possibly be being a little bit too harsh here, but it's Protocol. So Protocol for me, just, you know, not a great map, was there from release, right? I feel like this map had too much verticality, you know, too many power spots. You know, there was almost always somebody that was like either side of the map in one of the top windows, which, you know, kind of made it quite hard to make plays unless you kind of went underground. But there was nothing worse than when you went on a long underground route only to end up dying, right? Because that felt like your only way to get around these people that were holding these power positions. I feel like the other problem with Protocol is because it was in ranked play. If you're into competitive, you probably found yourself playing a lot of Protocol throughout the year. And it just, yeah, it got a little bit frustrating playing it. It got frustrating watching it. And yeah, for me, Protocol in at 23. Coming in at 22, and I never thought I'd see this map so far down a map ranking list, is WMD. So it was reimagined in Black Ops 6, was called World Motor Dynasty. It got rid of the snowy feeling, right, which kind of felt like the map lost its sparkle a little bit. I know it always sounds stupid, but I feel like snowy maps in Call of Duty have just always been pretty cool, and they kind of get those bonus points straight off the rip. So it kind of lost that, but for some reason as well, it didn't play very well in Black Ops 6. I felt like it played really slow in a lot of game modes, which is a bit weird. You'd expect this map to play faster with the fast-paced movement of Black Ops 6. But I remember streaming this map, and like all of us in the party were like, what is going on? We had so many slow games in a row. I think it was when they first added it. We were kind of playing the 24/7 playlist. So yeah, it's a shame. You'd think it would play a lot better. It didn't. Probably the worst version of WMD we've ever had, and hopefully we don't see this version return, and it's WMD at 22. Coming in at 21, we've got Rewind. So Rewind was a very weird map. It's not good, but it also wasn't the worst map in the game, right? You know, it was a little bit of a weird layout. Obviously, mid-street was a bit of a no-go zone. You know, you felt like it was a very suicidal to try and cross street. You know, you'd always sort of end up dying. There was a lot more emphasis again on fighting within the kind of mid-buildings. But for some reason, this map did play and cause some chaotic hardpoint gameplays. Don't get me wrong, the spawns were a little bit horrible, and maybe that played a part in why it was so chaotic. But yeah, I didn't really know exactly where to put it, and it's Rewind settling at 21. Coming in at 20, we've got Bounty. So this was set on a skyscraper. Obviously, we've had some pretty cool maps in the past, such as High Rise. Bounty, just not one of those. I felt like there were a lot of places on this map where people could be. You know, a lot of weird little areas. You know, it felt like there was also some areas of the map that were quite unused, like at the back end of each side. And I also felt like the visibility was a little bit off on this map. Obviously, it was set not dead at night time, but a little bit darker. And yeah, just one of those maps that just, for me, was neither here nor there, and it's Bounty at 20. Coming in at 19, we've got Babylon. To be honest, not a great COD map, right? Just a slightly bigger version of Shipment, but just didn't play anywhere near as good. You know, some people might say, you know, it was fun for a few days, right? But it got very boring, you know, and it was only fun if the team balancing worked in your favor, and you were spawn killing them on demolition or spawn trapping them and they couldn't move. Yeah, it was a lot of fun. But the biggest issue with this map is it suffered from one of the biggest problems Black Ops 6 had, which was the flak jacket perk being pretty useless, and there was a lot of nade spam, and I just remember getting very bored of this map very quickly when it released, and it's Babylon in at 19. Coming in at number 18, we've got Extraction. So when this first got added, it was a nice change of pace initially, right? It was a much bigger map compared to a lot of the base Black Ops 6 maps, but again, it then ended up having a lot of areas on the map that were quite unused. Mid-map was a bit of a no-go zone because there was always somebody up in like the tower that could look over with like a sniper. You then kind of had to go on like a long underground route to try and get a flank, which, you know, was a long way to go if you then didn't get rewarded when you got there. And it also just, again, being like an Avalon, I believe, POI, just the colors of this map, right? You know, it just felt like a POI. It didn't feel that great. And yeah, Extraction in at 18. Coming in at 17, we've got Scud. I don't really know what to tell you about Scud. I know people absolutely hated on this map when it first came out, but I genuinely don't think it was as bad as people make it out to be. I'm not saying that Scud's one of the greatest maps ever, right? It's coming in at 17. You know, it's probably the best of a bad bunch in this bottom part of the rankings, but I never really minded playing it, right? And it kind of gave me sort of Satellite vibes from Cold War. And again, I didn't think Satellite was the greatest map in Cold War, but again, I don't think it was as bad as people made out, and it was always very good as well for aerial score streaks, and it's Scud in at 17. Similar situation at 16, we've got Vorkuta, which again, I think is a map that generally speaking wasn't loved across the community. You know, it got some bonus points for being a snowy map, I was always happy to play this map. I think it was the first ever map I played when the game first released. And it was also the first map that I dropped a nuke on, right? So it kind of got a few bonus points for that. It was a pretty crazy gameplay that I managed to drop. And I've had some pretty decent matches and some competitive matches on Vorkuta across the year, but it comes in at 16. Coming in at 15, we've got Grind. Now, this might get me a little bit of hate down in the comment section, but to be completely honest, I do not have that Black Ops 2 attachment to this map. You know, I don't feel like I've got this loyalty to it where I've got to rank it at a certain number just because of how good it used to be. It played a little bit weird, in my opinion, specifically on Demolition, which is my favourite game mode. The spawns played very strange, which was a bit weird, but it also didn't really fit competitive, and it obviously got chucked into the competitive sort of rotation for a little while. It was cool to try something new, but overall, I just didn't think this map was that spectacular in this game, and it's Grind at 15. Similar situation at 14, we've got Fringe. So again, I don't have that sort of Black Ops 3 loyalty towards this map. Yes, I played Black Ops 3. Yes, I liked Fringe in BO3, but it seemed fairly standard here on Black Ops 6. It didn't seem too crazy. Yes, I had some okay games, but I think the biggest problem for Fringe, in my opinion, was that I hardly ever saw it come up in rotation once it got added to the game. You had the 24/7 playlist when it first got added, so you could kind of play it over and over again. But outside of that, I'm not even sure if I ever played Fringe in a normal playlist, which to me was just a little bit weird and kind of prevented me from getting more reps on it across various different game modes. So 14 was as high as I could go for Fringe. At 13, we got Shutdown. So I wasn't sure on this map when it initially got added. It's got a few cheesy spots on it. The layout is kind of 3-lane, but it had a little bit of verticality and just it was a little bit strange at times. But overall, I actually enjoyed this map a lot. It played very, very well. I got quite a lot of good games on it. For whatever reason, whenever I played this map, I just seemed to always kind of hit clips. And I remember hitting a crazy 4 or 5 man feed with like an AR on this map. Like it was just absolutely insane. I think around a bomb site, just absolutely clearing house. So yeah, I thought Shutdown was definitely one of the better maps in the game, deserved to be in the top half, and comes in at 13. At 12, we've got Nuketown. So I always find Nuketown to be a very hard map to rank. But as far as it goes, I don't think Nuketown, definitely in Black Ops 6, wasn't the most enjoyable Nuketown we've ever had, right? I think with the fast-paced movement, it just made it even more chaotic than it normally is. There was some ridiculous spawn trapping on Domination this year in Nuketown. The amount of times I'd join a game halfway through on Nuketown and you're just getting absolutely railed in your spawn and you're like, what am I supposed to do, right? I did not do anything to deserve this. But on the other side of it, to balance it, I did have some decent games on Nuketown where I was spawn killing or, I was going for camos. It definitely helped. So yeah, for me, Nuketown in at 12. So coming in at number 11 and narrowly missing out on a top 10 spot was Subsonic. So they definitely tried something a little bit different, right, with the map design for Subsonic. I know some people might say it was absolutely horrible, but I feel like it kind of fitted the chaotic style of this game. And overall, I didn't actually mind playing it. I mean, it did have some pretty horrible spawns in certain game modes, but on the flip side, it was fast paced. You could get some pretty good kills going. You could get some good feeds. I thought it was quite chaotic. It did feel like you did have some options around the map. And for me, as far as it goes, not a map I would like to see return in another COD, but all things considered, kind of suited Black Ops 6 and probably was one of the better maps. So yeah, Subsonic in at 11. So we're now breaking into the top 10 and we're kicking it off with a map that might surprise a few of you, and that is Barrage. Now, I have historically got in a lot of trouble when I did my Black Ops Cold War map ranking video for talking too much about Demolition, right? Because that's my favorite game mode. That's the game mode I sit in 90% of the time if it's in a Call of Duty title. So a lot of the time I rank the maps based off how they play in my main game mode, right? But I've tried my best not to talk about it too much in today's video. But Barrage was absolutely insane for Demolition. And some people might say that's a cheesy thing to say, or some people might say just because you could spawn trap doesn't make the map good. I don't care. It suited my playstyle. It suited the game mode I play. It was absolutely insane. They added it to competitive for a little bit. You could do the exact same in Control. And I would go as far to say that if Demolition consistently played well in Black Ops 6, like you got 6v6 lobbies, I think Barrage could have possibly been a top 5 map for me because it was just absolutely mental for that game mode. But yeah, Barrage settles at 10. Coming in at 9, we've got Firing Range. So at the end of the day, it's Firing Range, right? It's always going to be a pretty decent map. and I feel like I have maybe a little bit of loyalty to this map compared to some of the maps we mentioned earlier, like Fringe and Grind, but it just didn't play quite as well here in Black Ops 6 as I might have expected it to. Again, I think the faster paced movement maybe made it a little bit too chaotic, a bit similar to what I said about Nuketown. But again, the other issue with firing range, very similar to Fringe, was that I didn't really see it come up in rotation that much after I played it in the specific playlist when it got added to the game. And I always think if you don't play a map loads, there's only so high you can really put it, so it's firing range in at 9. Coming in at number 8 is Haven. So when this map was first added to the game, I played it an awful lot, right? It falls into the same category as firing range and Fringe, where outside of its 24/7 playlist, I don't think I really saw it that much. But Black Ops 6 had a lot of maps that felt like POIs, and I thought that Haven actually felt unique. It was a map that I really enjoyed. I liked the colours, I liked the setting of the map. Yes, it was small, but it wasn't too small. You know, there was a bit more size to it. I don't know, it just didn't play quite as chaotic as you might think when you looked at it. Very good for SMGs. I really enjoyed it when they first added it. I played it loads, and it's Haven in at 8. So coming in at number 7, we've got Hacienda. Apologies, Fornax, if you're watching, because I know you hate this map. But for me, I hardly played Hacienda in Black Ops 4, so I don't have that kind of direct comparison. But I genuinely really enjoyed this map across pretty much every mode I played, whether it was in pubs or if it was in ranked play. And I always think that when a map plays well across various different game modes, that normally means, you know, it's a pretty decent map. And I think Hacienda just added that slightly kind of better pacing to the game, right? It wasn't too small, it wasn't too big. Felt like the pacing was, you know, a lot better. Felt like you did have a little bit of time to breathe, a little bit of, you know, breathing room. And yeah, for me, Hacienda deserved of its 7th spot. Coming in at number 6, we've got Derelict. So obviously Derelict was in the beta and it was there on release, so it's one of the maps that's been around for the absolute longest. Now, I don't know if anybody here watching this video watches Moors, but I remember watching one of his videos earlier on in the year, and I remember being in the pre-game lobby and everyone was voting for Derelict, and he said, "There's got to be more to life than Derelict." And that's a quote that's always stuck with me. But generally speaking, I have always enjoyed Derelict, and I feel like early on in the game life cycle of the game, a lot of people did vote for this map. I think it was probably one of the better maps at release. Yes, the spawn killing and the spawn trapping on the train carriages could get a bit mental. Sometimes it felt like you couldn't really move. But personally, I always enjoyed this map, and it's Derelict in at 6. So we now break into the top 5 and we kick it off with Hideout. So this map was added to the game fairly early on. I want to say this was added during Season 1. And again, this was a map that I've always enjoyed from the moment it was added. I feel like they just got the pacing of this map right. It was kind of the right size to get away from that real chaotic kind of Black Ops 6 small map vibe. But it also wasn't too big to the point where there were a lot of areas that weren't getting used, and it felt like the layout was pretty decent. You had a couple of different options of ways to get through the map. Had some pretty competitive games on this map. It did play pretty well in Demolition. You could get some good spawn killing going, and yeah, Hideout in at 5. Coming at number 4, we've got Dealership. This is a map, again, that I've always enjoyed from the moment they added it. I felt like it really suited SMG players. You know, you could use various different weapons on this map, but the SMG was probably the best way. You could play fast, but you could also get lost quite a bit. You know, there was various different options on the map. You know, you could go through that vent, or you could kind of jump out a side window. You know, it felt like you could get a couple of kills and then switch up your position very, very quickly. That's kind of my playstyle. That's what I like to do, kind of get in and out as fast as possible. And yeah, I really enjoyed Dealership, and it comes in at 4. Coming in at number 3 is Vault. So I have liked this map from day one. I mean, it had its issues in Search and Destroy, right, with the A-bomb site in Vault, where the attacking team could get there before the defending team, and it kind of made S&D a little bit boring to play / watch. But outside of that, I feel like it played really well across the majority of game modes. It was a pretty standard kind of map design, right? Kind of had 3 lanes, you know, kind of felt like, you know, how you'd expect the COD map to play. I feel like the pacing on this map was pretty good. And I recently dropped a nuke on this map, which, you know, can't complain, right? So it's Vault in at 3. Coming in at number 2 and narrowly missing out on the top spot is Payback. So I'll be completely honest, I was not sure on this map to begin with, right? It just felt like another small, chaotic map, nade spam, you know, just like a lot of the Black Ops 6 release maps. But over time, I actually learned to love this map. I feel like it really suited my playstyle. Like I said, with Dealership, I like to run around with an SMG, fast pace, keep up switching up my positions. And I feel like you could actually do this on Payback, kind of once you got used to the map and you kind of use the mid-house to your advantage. But you could also get from one side of the map to the other very, very quickly. and you could just keep rotating spawn points, and yeah, this just really suited me. And I believe my highest ever kill game on Black Ops 6 came on Payback, and it's in at number 2. But coming in at number 1, and the best map in Black Ops 6 in my opinion, was Skyline. So Skyline was just a great map, right? I again wasn't entirely sure on this map when it was first, when I first played it. It was there from release. I think it might have even been in the beta as well. But over time, I really liked the pacing / the layout of this map. I think it made for some really competitive matches. I think it made for some very chaotic matches. It was fast paced, but you did just have a little bit of breathing room as well. It was kind of on the edge, right, of being small, but also it felt like it wasn't as small as some of the really crazy maps on this game. You obviously had the kind of vent, you could go underground, play a different route, try and get a flank. I think competitively, there were some pretty crazy chaotic matches on this map. And yeah, generally speaking, I just think Skyline was, one of the better maps. It looked amazing as well. Again, it was another map, like I say, learned to love it over time, really enjoyed it, and for me, it's Skyline in at 1. So that's going to do us, guys, for ranking the maps. The best of a bad bunch for the most part, right? There were some pretty horrible maps in Black Ops 6, but I hope you guys have enjoyed it. If you have, please do hit the like button down below. And as always, when we do these ranking videos, I'm sure many of you have got different opinions, so I'd love to hear down in the comment section, what did I get right? What did I get wrong? We can debate it out down there. If you're brand new around here and want to find your way back for more, please do consider subscribing to the channel. And as always, guys, I hope everyone has a great day, and I'll catch you all in the next one.